Dear guests, welcome to our last panel, Ethics in AI-Enabled Communication, Navigating Transparency and Accountability. I'm Associate Professor Gaye Sancar Demren from Galatasaray University, Head of Public Relations Department. I teach Public Diplomacy and Public Relations. I want to thank you to the Presidency of the Republic of Turkey, Directorate of Communication. In this session, we have 5 precious panelists from each other, and we will examine the ethical implications of AI-enabled communication, focusing on the challenges of maintaining transparency and accountability in the digital age. As AI technologies become integral to communication platforms, the need to address issues such as disinformation, bias, privacy, and the responsible use of data becomes paramount. The discussion will explore how AI can enhance communication while ensuring ethical practices, upholding trust, and protecting individual rights. Let me introduce our first panelist, Professor Ulrich Bruckner at Stanford University. Ulrich Bruckner is a Berlin-based political analyst and Jean Monnet Professor of European Studies. He teaches in Berlin and at Stanford University in California and became European Union Jean Monnet Professor in 2003. Bruckner has long worked on issues of European integration, and his PhD is on the role of European Commission in UI policy making. Bruckner has also worked as an academic director at the German Foreign Office, the NATO School, and the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy. Welcome. I want to ask you, what are the key ethical challenges in using AI for public communication, and how they can be addressed?
First of all, thank you very much for the kind introduction and for having me here. I take the liberty as the first speaker to talk about the topic from the perspective of a learner. I came here yesterday with some knowledge about artificial intelligence, but other than the distinguished guests on the stage, I'm more like a user and an observer. And so I was very curious to hear what the other experts who have been invited here have to say about artificial intelligence. And other than being a learner, I'm also a political scientist. So what I learned in the last 2 days is that there is a growing awareness of the importance of artificial intelligence, and that there is a lot to do, and mostly nation-state representatives are very active in deciding that they should invest in the technology and provide an ecosystem. There wasn't too much talk about the topic that we will address today in this final panel on regulation and the ethical dimension of it. But I also heard a lot about AI as a tool that can be used for the good or for the not so good. And when we walk through the hotel, we see a Christmas tree, which means that we are right before Christmas, which means that you can make wishes. And a lot of people I've been listening to made wishes. But given that I'm a political scientist, I know that we live in a world in which wishes alone don't necessarily are enough to come true. And if we hear about optimism, like the tool can be used for the good and that will lead the world into a better place, it is often connected with a lot of normative positions, and here speaks the educator, that I wouldn't let my students get away with, because if I hear words like transparency and trust and something should be done for the value added of society, then it's not sufficiently operationalized. So if we would discuss this in a pro seminar, we would ask, what exactly do you mean by that? And that was, in most of the presentations I was listening to with normative statements, poorly defined. I also think that the binary metaphor, that it's either this or either that, underestimates the power of this tool and what it does. Because if we think of it should be something that serves humans, and we have at Stanford an AI institute that starts with an H, so it's HAI, which in German reads as shark, like high, then it assumes that humans are statist, like humans are what we all think humans are, and then there is a technology and that does something to either improve or to make life more complicated of humans. But I strongly believe that this technology also changes humans and our perception of humanity to an extent that, at least from what I heard, have not been sufficiently addressed. And therefore, I'm very interested to hear from the experts in the field of the ethical dimension and how it could be regulated, how that is addressed, because it's even more far-reaching than many of the topics that have been looked at from a technological perspective. So if now the political scientist speaks, then I think a lot of the comments or the announcements of strategies appear to me as pretty apolitical. Because from a political perspective, it's important to look at where's the power structure. We as political scientists read institutions, we look at cui bono, who benefits from something, and see if there are sufficient resources to make a certain idea fly. And I'm afraid a lot of the wishes that have been expressed before Christmas are quite optimistic to come back to a non-analytical category, and I will explain to you why. We are already in a situation in which sustainable development goals that are defined by the United Nations are poorly addressed, and now on top of it comes a disruptive technology that, like every disruptive change, produces winners and losers. And that leads, without major theoretical necessities or an empirical test, a situation of those who are already in a privileged position will benefit more. And that's why it doesn't come with a surprise that those with the most advanced answers to the questions that have been addressed in this conference come from countries or from ecosystems that have been privileged in the past, and it's quite likely that they will even be more privileged in the future. And if we then generalize in a very black and white picture, then from an actor perspective, which is also a very traditional political science point of view, we have powerful corporations with financial firepower that goes far beyond what we heard today and yesterday in a very national perspective point of view, in which all of these actors that seem to invent the wheel independently from their neighboring countries and then complain that there is not enough time or the cyber attacks are so mean and the trade-offs with if I do this, then I don't have the financial resources to do something else. This altogether looks poorly addressed in a situation in which the very nature of artificial intelligence is global, while the consequences, how we address the negative implications of using this technology, is addressed in the structure of what dates back to the Westphalian Peace, the idea of we organize the global order based on nation states, no matter how tiny they are, including the ones that cover a third of an island 40 kilometers south of Turkey. So coming back to my point of binary metaphors are not sufficient to address what we are talking about. If an ethical perspective and the search for ethical regulation has any meaning, then it should serve people, but then the question is, what humans do we have in mind? And the subtitle of our conference is trends. And there are major trends that also directly affect what we are talking about in this conference, that there are geopolitical shifts that are multiple times addressed in this conference, and those of you who have been here last year also know that there are some people who claim that we live in times of the end of the liberal era, which rings a lot of alarm bells for me coming from a very liberal environment, because liberal in this understanding means individual freedoms. And one of the reasons why I got very interested in looking more closely into AI was an article written by Henry Kissinger when he turned 99. And there he announced that artificial intelligence will end the era of enlightenment, because we used our brain and causality to check if authorities deserve to be in power. And if we have a better line of argumentation, then we deconstruct the power of kings and queens and churches and whoever claims to have the power. But if with artificial intelligence we learn to look at the end of a process and ignore the process as such, or the process is hidden in a black box, then it changes how humans see the world. And what we learned from Monica today about micro-targeting shows that the basic understanding of the functioning of a Western-type democracy is that we can use our brains and form an opinion to decide who should be in power in an election process in a Western-type democratic system that is based on institutions. But now with AI, we find ourselves in a situation that perhaps the dream is dreaming us, or to put it in different words, that we don't form an opinion, but the opinion forms us. So that gives a lot of work for those of us who work directly on the formulation of ethical standards and how to implement them. And with this very global remark, I leave it here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your remarks. Our second panelist is Marisa Zalabak, founder of Open Channel Culture and co-chair AI Ethics Education. Marisa Zalabak is an AI ethicist and educational psychologist specialized in transdisciplinary collaboration and emerging technology strategies. As founder of Open Channel Culture and co-founder of the Global Alliance for Digital Education and Sustainability, she leads innovative approaches to addressing the safety of emerging technologies, future of education, workforce development, and human-machine interactions with a focus on ethical AI and generative systems design. Well, Marisa, how can policymakers and companies collaborate to develop ethical framework for AI-enabled communication?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. And thank you for the organizers for having me to this really extraordinary, this really extraordinary conference. There are a few things, if I'm going to be addressing policy, because we've had so much talk about AI ethics, which makes me very excited. I've been in AI ethics for a long time, not because it was, brand new. And so the idea that this is something that people want to talk about, but we also want to talk about what is AI ethics. First of all, what is AI? Because there's a huge amount of, it's used in this ubiquitous way rather than talking about what AI really is. Because as a former panelist said in one of the other panels, the future is now, right? We are in this. This is not something that's happening. It's going to continue to happen, but it is happening in this moment. And this is going to require education of a different kind than we've ever believed. This is going to require reimagination of what is an emergent, it's dust, an emergent thing, right? It's an emergent technology. I'm so sorry.
I can continue, maybe.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Because AI is, thank you. We will get there. It's a little dust. Because AI is happening now. And when the internet first came in, we just had our 50th anniversary of the internet, 50th. And it was designed to cross boundaries. It was designed to break boundaries. So not just being one country and one nationality, but designed to go across boundaries. And I want to really talk about what it will require with this new technology of something that is emergent. It will require us to imagine in a way, not to have AI imagine for us. And this has been mentioned before. It is humans programming machines for humans. And so what we want to think about is, well, how are we using our imaginations? So first of all, it's not just the people here or people who are not involved with AI who don't know AI. At MIT just put out a huge report about the fact that there's such confusion. And there's debates about what it is, because AI is used as this generic term now. There's IT, information technology, there's AI systems, there's generative AI, then there's AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, which we have not gotten to yet. And there's a lot of myths and there's a lot of misconceptions. So one of the things we have to really talk about is re-educating, and that means everyone. There is no expert in this completely. It's new, it's happening as we speak. We're building the plane as we're flying it. So we really want to think about, first of all, what is AI? Then we talk about what is ethical AI. And ethical AI is not one thing. We have responsible technology, that's the umbrella. Then we have responsible AI, that's use of responsible AI systems that lives within that. And then there's ethics, because who's ethics? When I first got into this, I'm a psychologist, and I'm an AI ethicist, but when I first got in, I said, who's ethics? Which culture, which organization, which society? So we want to begin to look at what are the different ethics around the world, and then begin to make constellations. We can begin to weave them together, like the World Medical Association's International Code of Ethics is the most accepted branch of ethics used across countries around the world. So we can find common ethics. They're not going to be the same everywhere. It's not going to be binary. It's actually many, many layered, which is pretty exciting to think about. We're really talking about a new thing. And in order to do a new thing, we're going to have to give up some old ways, right? It's called two loops theory. If we want to change and we want to really be transformative, there's some things we're going to have to let go of, myself included. That doesn't mean we have to throw everything away, particularly human values about goodwill and compassion, and the term empathy that has been used over and over again, but not just cognitive empathy. There's also emotional empathy and there's compassionate empathy. So which kind of empathy will we be programming? And then also some of the things I'm working on, I'm currently working on the standards for synthetic emotions in AI, which is a little weird. It's a little creepy and a little weird. But emulated empathy in AI can be used to manipulate, as has been said before, it's a two-edged thing. It can be used to manipulate or it can be used to help. And it is up to us, and when it comes to policymakers, if we're going to bring this to policy, we have to really begin thinking to ask better questions and ask it from more people. So the first thing about ethics, the bottom line is looking at how are we harming ourselves in ways that also harms others, or how are we benefiting ourselves in ways that will harm others? So that's one thing. IEEE, which I work with, it's the largest engineering organization in the world. I'm co-chair of AI ethics education there. We have something called ethically aligned design, which was referred to in the summit before. We have sustainability by design, which is technology and the environment. We have emulated empathy that we're working on. We have standards on weaponized AI. These are things, there are over 200 standards already in place with over 600 more in the works. So we have it going. So part of the thing, again, who benefits? Intentionally and unintentionally. So the risks, because we've talked a lot about AI ethics as a theory, but we have to really put this in practice. These are practical things. The first thing, I will say, with misinformation, disinformation, the highest probably, is the anthropomorphizing. It's a big word. What it means is we put human qualities into a machine. We program them to sound like humans, be like humans. But the thing is that it is not a human. It's a machine. It's really important. So policymakers, business owners, governments that begin to make sure that we are labeling. And if somebody doesn't have a label on there that's really a validated label, that we say, this is a machine that is speaking to you, to remind us, because this has turned into horrible problems. Delusion, we hear about delusion, and not just delusion of societies, delusion of communities, but also of the most vulnerable populations. We've had child suicides. We had a recent situation where a young man who has a disability, a cognitive disability, was told to kill his parents. We have another one where a Gen AI system actually told someone to kill themselves, because the system is mirroring what they are hearing the person say. The system doesn't have an intent. It was talked about before. It's a tool that is being tooled by someone else, and the someone else sometimes is the user, because the system wasn't designed to protect the user. So we have to, everyone wants to do this quickly, but we have to actually, if we want to go far, we have to go a little slower and double check and check again. Not just with me. I'm one AI ethicist. I want 10 people behind me. I want 100 people behind me coming in to say, no, we have to check that again. We have tech addiction. Almost everyone in this room, almost all of us have some form of tech addiction, because the world does if we have access. Children right now, globally, this is not just the US, this is not just Western countries. Anyone who has access to an electronic device, children spend an average of 10 hours a day. 10 hours a day interacting with a machine. And so we have to be more vigilant. And that's not just children, it's the elderly, it's vulnerable populations. We have sex trafficking, we have human trafficking, because we are not double checking these systems. So one of the phrases that I heard recently that I loved is that, are we trying to, because they said, well, we have a companion. Somebody talked about, oh, my best friend is going to be an AI character. The problem with that is, are we trying to cure loneliness by scaling up isolation? Because if I'm saying I'm going to replace my best friends with an AI character, then we've actually increased isolation. So systems failures. We have AI systems that are built AI for good, that are built so spectacularly. But the thing is, who are they benefiting? And if they fail, if the electronic grid fails, have we become reliant? The privacy paradigm, so privacy, surveillance, lack of inclusion, lack of psychologists involved in design, workforce, privacy. There are benefits, and I can go through those. But I don't have a huge amount of time right now. The benefits we know. We've heard about the benefits, what it can do for us. But workforce decimation, weaponization, these are things we have to begin to ask better questions. This is for policymakers. This is for teachers. This is for parents. This is for families. So the first thing for actions, we have 5 actions, is a reimagination. We need to reimagine education for every single person. There's nobody who has enough education right now, including me. Considering AI systems and how we're validating these, and that's been mentioned several times, but we have to get practical about how we're validating. We might need triple validation. Ongoing assessments is the third. The right to refuse, or the right to have some kind of redress when something goes wrong. And the last one is really the biggest. It's transdisciplinary collaboration. And that goes beyond multi or cross or interdisciplinary. It goes far beyond. It's talking about collaborating not just with all the people in this room and the international community. It's talking about collaborating for all the people who aren't in this room. It's talking about bringing in, we talk about stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders who are being left out? So we need to bring them in. We talked about before, we heard about asking the public what they think. We have to bring people in, the average person, to ask them, the mother, the truck driver, the farmer. So we need to do that and bring them in to some of the decision making, because we are rebuilding the plane at this moment. So what is called actually by World Economic Forum and all the big global summits, radical collaboration, Radical collaboration is transdisciplinary collaboration. And I can tell you how to do it. If you want to find out, come and talk to me. But that is really the ultimate way that we are going to get to the next step, I think.
Thank you. As we have limited time, I will give you 6 minutes for you. Our third panelist is Jordan Morgan, Director of Programs, Forward Thinking. Jordan is the Director of Programs at Forward Thinking, a London-based conflict resolution NGO. He has expertise in frontline mediation, negotiation, and the facilitation of national political and community dialogue processes. He has over 8 years of experience working at the highest political and diplomatic levels in the United States, Europe, the Gulf, Middle East, and North Africa, the European Union, and the United Nations. Well, Jordan, what are the positive applications of AI? Could you evaluate the challenges of using AI in warfare in terms of accountability and transparency?
Thank you, Gaia. I'll just move this so you can hear me. Well, look, there's some really amazing benefits of AI, and I'm not an AI expert, so I'll caveat everything I say. But I wanted to share a few examples that I find particularly helpful. Over the last 24 hours, we've heard about crisis communication, for example, where in times of terror attacks or natural disasters or health pandemics, that AI-enabled communication can really be deployed at scale and quickly. We've heard how in social media, artificial intelligence can actually listen to some of the sentiments and some of the feelings about particular issues. And these are all very helpful and useful things in our toolkit when we're dealing with crisis. But in my experience, I work for Forward Thinking. We're a conflict resolution NGO based in London. We very much focus on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, but also more broadly in the Middle East and the Gulf. Over the last year, I've seen how artificial intelligence is actually being used, and we need to think more deeply about the key issues within our panel today, which is transparency and accountability. I think from my own experience, it's artificial intelligence's use within warfare, which is something I wanted to really touch on today, because there are obviously lots of examples where AI-enabled communication, if stuff goes wrong, if there's an error made, the actual consequences are much less than if in a life and death situation like an active conflict. So we all know what happened on October 7th, and we should, rightly condemn the killing of civilians in conflict. But I wanted to share an example where artificial intelligence has been used since October 7th, and it's the use by the Israeli military of artificial intelligence to target or create target lists of potential of militants who they want to take out, and massive lists. I think something like 37,000. The reports that I've read were quickly gathered in the first few months of the war. It's led to a massive airstrike campaign in Gaza and created lots of challenges, lots of deaths. I mean, some of the UN figures have reported recently that around 70% of the civilian casualties have been women and children. So I think in terms of our ethical framework, as my previous panelists have said, there's a lot of work to do there. And one of the sort of things we have to think about is when these lists were created, the report suggests that the person who was pressing the button, also there were people next door to that person looking at. So ultimately the decision was a human one. But when we talk about transparency, we have to really talk about how were these decisions made. Where does the data come from? So we know that artificial intelligence needs large data sets. Where does that data come from in that example? Who augmented that data? If you are creating a list like that, there will obviously be lots of agencies involved. And if the reports are true, there's things like Lavender or Gospel. So if we know that AI has lots of errors, so if these systems are combined, what's the error rate if two systems are combined? So these are all the sort of transparency questions that come up, which I suppose states are generally quite opaque. When mistakes are made, there's a rush to kind of avoid attributing blame, particularly in politics. But when we look at transparency, we have to talk about traceability. We know in these large language models, in these big neural networks, that you get black boxes, so it's difficult to exactly pinpoint where the error was. We also know that artificial intelligence can sometimes hallucinate. So it raises big questions about accountability in particular. So in the example I gave, who therefore is responsible if the decision of the AI was to create this list? Who is responsible for the harm to the civilians? Or who is responsible if international law is violated? Obviously, we have to be careful about what we regulate when it comes to artificial intelligence. We don't want to stifle innovation. But I think when the risks in times of conflict are so high, it's life or death. Errors in artificial intelligence within times of war can lead to catastrophic consequences. And therefore, there are lessons for those in communication trying to use this technology in their own day-to-day life. I'll finish, as I know we're short on time, and you've all done very well. We're at the end of the day. The godfather of AI is Geoffrey Hinton. He recently has raised quite a lot of concerns about just generally AI, and in particular its use in war, spreading misinformation, and autonomous weapons. But when I was listening to his recent talks, he reminded me of the Nuremberg trials after World War II. And the Nuremberg trials basically said that it was the principle of individual responsibility. So regardless of rank or stature, if someone tells you to do something in the military and your excuse is, oh, well, it's my commanding officer told me to do it, the principle of individual responsibility is something that we shouldn't forget, because the Nuremberg trials were the essential basis upon which we've constructed the international rules-based system. So when we're thinking about transparency and we're thinking about accountability, it's something we really have to have at the forefront of our minds, because the lessons from conflict actually apply in all sorts of other areas. So, thank you.
Thank you for your contribution. Well, our fourth panelist is Andreas Horn, Head of AI Ops at IBM. Seasoned leader in AI Ops at IBM with a rich international background, having lived, worked, and studied across Europe, America, and Asia, including Shanghai, Prague, London, and Barcelona. He brings a global perspective to his role. With 7+ years at IBM and prior experience at Microsoft, Andreas leads a dynamic team specializing in AI Ops and asset-based consulting. He combines strong technical expertise with practical experience in implementing AI solutions for a large enterprise, consistently ensuring that technology aligns with and serves business objectives. Well, I want to ask the same question as Marisa. How can tech companies collaborate to develop ethical framework for AI-enabled communications?
Merhaba, thank you very much. And I would also like, teşekkür ederim. I would also like to to say, first of all, thank you very much. It's an extraordinary venue, and the event so far was incredible. A lot of great insights, so thank you very much. And regarding your question, so first of all, you need to understand that I'm not like a politician or like a government employee, and I'm also not a communication specialist. I'm basically a senior manager at IBM, which is one of the largest IT companies. We are based in the United States, but we do large scale IT transformations all around the world. I'm leading a service portfolio for the Europe, Middle East and Africa region. And I'm really working day to day with AI, with the systems, so I'm not really focusing on ethics or on the communication part from a day-to-day perspective. I'm really focusing on implementing and solving real-world problems, right? And I would like to add 2 points to this conversation, since I know that we are very short on time, and I agree with most what was said before. So, and I think everybody here in the room agrees that we need ethics, we need AI ethics, like we need ethics everywhere, right? We need ethics in our society, we need ethics and guardrails in the TV, we need it in the press, we need it everywhere. It's just a matter of like regulating and setting it up. But having said that, I would like to add 2 points also looking at the overall discussions over the last 2 days. The first point is that AI is nothing new, right? We have ChatGPT, it was released around 2 years ago, but AI is there since the 1940s, right? And there were hype cycles before. There were big discussions before when, for example, IBM Watson, which is a system, some of you maybe know it, won against a chess master from Russia, Kasparov. It was an event where everybody said, now AI will solve all of our problems. There was a big hype, it was in the 80s, 90s. And after that, we recognized, hey, it doesn't solve all of our problems. We need to rethink it. And then we had a downward phase, and then again we see a hype cycle, again with the release of ChatGPT, which is great, right? But what I want to say is AI is there since 60, 70 years, right? And we have this discussion about AI ethics since 60 to 70 years, so we should keep this in mind, first of all. And I would also like to say, I saw a lot of very critical discussions about AI, and I agree, it's very important to be critical, and it brings a lot of dangers like every new technology, but it also brings a lot of potential, right? And I just want to highlight, for example, think about you all use social media. Probably 20-30% of the people here in this room are already scrolling on Instagram or some other social media like TikTok. And this is heavily based on algorithms, right? You're using AI on a day-to-day basis, or Google Maps, for example. Or think about the big car companies. Autonomous driving will be maybe in 5 to 10 years something we all have. And I just checked the numbers before I went on the stage. Every day in Turkey, 20 people die in car accidents. And everybody, if you probably has somebody in the family who had a bad car accident. If we have autonomous driving, which is powered by AI, this would really solve a lot of problems, and we would really reduce this, right? So what I want to say is we should also focus on the very good aspects of a new technology. It's already there for a long time, and we will not be able to prevent it. Governments can, for example, shut down OpenAI or all of these websites, but if you do this, you will just lose out because other countries will use it, they will leverage it, and they will overtake you, right? So AI will not replace humans, it will not replace you, but the people who are able to leverage it and to use it, they will replace you, right? So better to go with the flow, better to learn new technology and leverage it and make the best out of it. Having said that, regarding AI ethics and answering your question now, I make it short. I think it comes down when we talk about AI ethics to 3 dimensions. The first dimension, we need regulation, we need governments, we need strong governments, strong leadership in saying what is good and what is bad. I agree with this 100%. We saw this yesterday that there are already governments doing this on a very, very nice and good way. There are also examples in a very bad way. I think the European Union is just over-regulating. So I'm a German, I think I can say that. But there are good ways as well, right? So just saying we need the governments, we need regulation, we need guardrails, like we have guardrails in all other places as well. This is the first dimension. The second dimension are enterprises. My company, for example, we are a leading tech company. We have operations in more than 180 countries, global company. We build a lot of very mission-critical applications. For example, if you use an ATM, 99% of the script is written by my company, so we are very mission critical. And we also need to really focus on AI ethics. So for example, my company, we have an AI ethics board. If we build new applications for companies, we have an AI ethics by design approach. We always look into ethics, and we always make sure that we prevent that there will be some flaws or problems. And we saw it before. I don't know if you have seen Malik's presentation, the AI artist from Nigeria. He showed what happens when you write kids in Africa in Midjourney. It will show you poor people living in kind of a ghetto, right? Because this is what you get in the internet, and this is what the model is trained on. This is a bias. We call it a bias, and you need to you need to be aware of this. So I think enterprises should be aware of this. And the third part, I make it short, give me 3 more sentences, is education, right? And education is not only how to use it in the best way, it's also critical thinking, that if you see a generated picture, that you might be able to say, hey, this is AI generated or not. And also, you need to have a basic understanding of how AI works.
Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you.
Well, our last panelist, Sinan, Deputy Director of the Asia and Africa Language Programming Center at China Media Group. Sinan serves as a Deputy Director at the Asia and Africa Language Programming Center, and he is bringing nearly 15 years of experience in the media industry. The Asia and Africa Language Programming Center, a significant international branch of China Media Group, oversees the distribution of content in 30 languages to audiences in Asia and Africa, fostering cross-cultural understanding and global connections. His work focuses on strengthening media innovation, optimizing the effectiveness of media communication, and ensuring the right balance between technological innovation and content creation. Welcome. Well, how has the Chinese communication industry integrated new technologies into the communication process? Can you tell us 5-6 minutes?
Okay, yes, of course. Thank you, Professor, for the introduction. Since we're running a little bit out of time, I will try to just cut to the point. So, in regard to your question, Professor, first of all, I would like to talk about the role of communication professionals in the face of surging wave of AIs. We know that AI, this technology, is dramatically changing the way of how we live, how we think, and how we learn. So in this process, I think that the communication industries, the professionals in these industries are having a very important role. So I think while carrying out the communications, I think we need to hold a responsible, fair, and I would say objective attitude to make the AI can generate more positive, healthy, and authentic and diverse content to our audiences and to the users. So China Media Group, we as a Chinese media organizations, we are committed to that issue, and we are trying to put that into a global context. For example, in April this year, we have launched a initiative with organizations from Asia, Europe, Latin America, and Africa. This initiative is called AI Governance Media and Action Initiative. So with this, we are trying to call for a joint efforts to ensure a valuable, responsible, and a sustainable use of the artificial intelligence. And the second, besides the industry responsibilities, actually, I really agree with what Mr. Horn has just said, that we have to make the good use of AI, because by using it, I think we can find out how to use it better, and even how to better manage it when we're using it. So through our engagement with the technology, the AI technology, we have noticed that the AI can, at one hand, to improve the production efficiency. And on the other hand is that it has introduced more creative application scenarios when we are doing the content production. For example, technologies such as the AI-generated avatars, AI-driven artistic interpretations, and also the use of AR, VR, and MR tools. Those have all injected more creativity and more experimental, immersive, and interactive elements into our content. So within those engagements, I think we have come out with more ideas of how to use this better. So among those, I think the most important thing is the guidelines and rules of how we use it. So we have come up with the guidelines and standards, of course, for the use of AI. And rules number 1 is the news authenticity, we've been talking about throughout the summit. So we have to fulfill the duties of journalism to provide the public with truthful, objective, and comprehensive content. And also, rules number 2, we have to follow the principles of complying with relevant laws, regulations, industry standards, as well as the ethical requirements while we're doing the news reporting and the content production.
Last remark, please.
Okay. And also the regulations clearly outline the establishment of the strict human review mechanisms, such as facts check and verification. So all in all, I think we have to also look into the future, because while embracing the AI technologies, we have to know that it will always have the challenges that brings to us. So we have to navigate it in a responsible way. Number 1, the use of AI, I think, should be people-centered, as we have mentioned that we should hold a philosophy of people first, so with the aim of enhancing the common well-being of all the people. Second, I think is the use of artificial intelligence must keep upholding the authenticity and the safety. Actually, this is what we've been talking about, the regulations and the rules, so I'll just skip this part. And the last part, I want to make it to a broader point of view. I think the use of AI must deepen the global cooperation and the bridge the development gap. I think this is when we say AI for all. This technology should be the tools, should be the tools for only few people, few organizations, or even few countries. It should be a technology for all, and we should make the equal rights of it when we're using it. So with that in mind, China Media Group, we are encouraging and welcome the creation of shared platforms for information exchanges and also technological cooperation. So I will conclude my speak with the Turkish saying to see if I can pronounce that right, okay? Bek elin mesivar, iki elin selivar.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, I would like to extend thanks to all our participants. And finally, I want to thank all the listeners for staying us until this hour and for their patience in following our discussions. Thank you all.